UConn, 7 p.m., Rentschler Field, Stores, Connecticut. Actually, it's East Hartford. Get amped. Week 2 is here nearly. Syracuse in the Nutmeg State. I'm amped about it as a Nutmeg State native. We're going to talk about what we want to see from SU in Week 2. This is Locked On Syracuse. It's right now.
Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonapardo and Valentine with you on this wonderful Thursday morning. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We are free. We're available wherever you get your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Owen, are you excited for the upside of this weekend, which is Saturday night? Syracuse taking on the Huskies. This shouldn't be much of a contest. Syracuse opens as, 22.5-point favorites here? You're the betting man.
It's at least 3 scores I saw.
Well, that's exciting.
It is. I went to
should be an
Field
easy
once.
game. So did I. I was there for the Lacrosse National Championship 2021.
Oh, beats me. I went for it was a USA versus Mexico. It was the World Cup send-off last year.
I don't think mine beats yours.
I thought mine was pretty cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, so do I.
Alex Morgan and the whole squad, others,
That's awesome.
They were incredible. They scored some of the best goals I've ever seen live in a soccer game. And I worked for Syracuse men's soccer for 4 years. No disrespect.
What does that tell you? Oh, there he goes. Just like that. The connection is back. Here he comes. Okay.
Those were the soccer
let me tell
gods. They were mad at me.
They're true. They're not happy with you. Ian McIntyre. All right. We do want to tell you guys to please tweet at us at _it's LO_Syracuse on Twitter. Tell us what you want to hear. We'd like to do some mailbag episodes. So if you have questions you want us to answer, throw them our way. We'd love to answer them on the podcast. If you want to tweet at us, email us. We have an email, losyracuse44@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube watcher, that's on the screen for you. I'll leave it up for a couple more seconds so you can get that down. But please send us your thoughts. Send us your questions about whatever it is Syracuse related. We want to hear it. And we're happy to answer any questions you have. So please send us some emails. We'd love to see them. Okay, let's talk what we want to see from Syracuse here in Week 2 against UConn. First one for me, and I think first one for you as well, and first one for the entirety of Syracuse fandom is less than 4 offensive line penalties. Offensive line penalties were the bane of Syracuse's existence in Game 1. I mean, everything was pretty much on all cylinders aside from drops and injuries and penalties. So, I mean, 18 penalties is crazy. I think like the grand majority, if not all of them, were on the offensive line. I cannot confirm that, however.
There was a
bad.
couple of motion issues, but
Yeah,
it
some
was
illegal
very
formations.
very heavily offensive line based to get to 18. Shout out to Stephen Bailey for this stat. Syracuse 3rd in the country in penalty yards, and the other 4 teams in the top 5 have all played 2 games.
That's
so
insane.
Syracuse with the worst single game performance
Who are the other teams?
of college football. That I don't have off the top of the head. But I know that they all had a couple of games under their belt, as opposed to Syracuse racking up number 3 in the country in a single game.
Yeah, I mean that's like a nuts statistic, and one that I'm sure Dino Babers is not entirely happy about. I'm looking for the stat on NCAA.com right now, but I can't find it. Maybe I'll try to look for it later. Okay, so that's the first one. I mean, I feel like that's pretty
Pretty
uniform
self-explanatory.
across the board.
Yeah.
4, we were kind of debating whether 4 was too little because I don't know if they're going to go from 18 to 4. But hey, this is an offense that probably shouldn't be committing so many offensive line penalties. I don't know what the vibe at Rensselaer Field is going to be like. I still don't know if I'm going to go to the game. But if I am, if you're there, say hi. But I don't know if the fans are going to be like they were in the Dome, where Louisville couldn't exactly hear themselves. Which shout out to Otto's Army and shout out to the fans in the Dome. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to number 2. 0 injuries. No injuries. They got
Please.
to stay healthy. People have got to stay healthy. I can't see Sean on the ground. I can't see Marlowe on the ground. Can't see Elmore and Stephon Thompson on crutches. I can't be seeing this. It's ridiculous. Syracuse, I don't know what the issue is. I mean, I don't know if you want to call them freak injuries or whatever, but I don't know necessarily that it isn't. I don't know if it's a coincidence that Syracuse is getting all these injuries. Um, it seemed crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, you lose 2 starters in week 1, and you go in, and I don't want to say this as the knock on UConn, but you go into a UConn game, which is, one of your 2 sort of gimme games on the schedule, and a schedule that we've talked about so many times in terms of the difficulties. This is one of those 2 games that you're really supposed to just be able to go out and have that simple game where you can try a few things, where you can have those going for you. It's UConn and Wagner on the schedule that are those games. You need to come out of this game injury free, because that is where you lose this game the worst. I think is in injuries, and if you lose a guy or a couple of guys to injury, you've got 2 season-ending injuries in week 1. That's just not something
You
that
can't afford
you
another
ever
one.
want to see. Yeah, you really can't afford another one. And so I hope that, if the situation presents itself, the coaching staff is smart with, how long Sean stays in the game, or how long a Shrader will stay in the game, or, some of those, more, I guess, essential pieces, the non-replaceables in terms of this offense and defense. I hope that if the situation is there, that maybe, Sean's not taking late 4th down snaps like you might have seen in that Louisville game. I think that's something to keep an eye out for, and we hope, and as you would hope every week, that this is a 0 injuries game. But after you lose 2 guys last week, that's definitely something that makes our list with a little bit more emphasis, I guess I would say, going into this week too.
Totally. Let me read a quick advertisement, then we've got a couple more for you before we do get to some questions that we had on Twitter. But before all of that, let me tell you about Upside. From cringing at the pump to getting an eye popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. To get started, download the free Upside app. Use the promo code LOCKED and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit card or debit card, and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. Okay, we're back here on Locked On Syracuse. Matt Bonapardo and Valentine with you, talking Syracuse football heading into week 2 of the 2022 season. Very exciting stuff. Syracuse is 1-0, hopefully 2-0 for the first time since 2018. How exciting is that?
Incredibly.
I agree. Okay, let's talk about it. We've got 2 more. One of which, Shrader, 300 yards passing.
Please. Please. This would be
Thoughts?
huge. This would be huge. We talked about it yesterday when we did our sort of confidence meters, and I believe we both had Shrader and the quarterback as fourth on our confidence meter because we weren't sure if it was that flash in the pan type game or if this is what,
I want to see him do it, dude.
2022 Garrett Shrader has in the bag for us. If he hits 300 yards this week, and this is a game where you in theory are going to be able to air it out a little bit and take a couple of more shots than you might traditionally be able to take, especially in some of these other games this year. This is the game to get to 300, and it's going to have to start from the get-go, right? You're going to probably be running the ball a decent amount, so you're going to have to start fast in terms of the passing game. I think he can get to 300 yards passing. I would be incredibly pleased if he gets to that number, because I think that is the sort of call to action, right? You want to see it one more time. You want to see, hey, can you do this again? Can this be, what we want to see? The arm has gotten a little bit better. The accuracy is there. The play calling, the offense as a whole, that 300-yard passing margin it's not easy to hit, but boy, would it say a lot for the direction that this passing game is headed and is, almost two, if he can hit that threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be crazy because we have just not seen that from him, but I think
Yeah.
it's possible in this game because it looks like they're going to be throwing the ball more with Garrett, and it looks as if he's more comfortable because, I mean, that's just what we saw in week one. Um, I think the only way this happens is if they don't use Sean as much, or if Sean is primarily catching the football. If he throws like 3 screens to Sean that all go pretty far, I mean, then he's kind of close, right?
Mhm.
I just don't know how many deep balls we're going to get out of him, Like, I don't know how many times we're going to really see him go for a deep shot down the field to Alford or Isaiah Jones. I just don't really see that happening all too much. But who knows? Speaking of which, Damian Alford, like I said this one time on the pod, maybe like a week ago now, he really like I was just watching him on one of the plays Saturday. Dude's huge. He's like 6'6", 2 something. Like he really reminds me of Custis. He's even a little bit bigger than Custis was.
Yeah.
Jamal Custis. I think Custis was 6'4", 6'5", and Alford of course 6'6". But I mean, the dude, he's an animal. He's awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to see just a little bit more. And this is not even, I don't think this didn't make our cut, but on my list too is, and I said this almost jokingly, I want to see a wow play from a receiver, a play where they, just burn someone, or a nice catch or something of that nature. I would love to see sort of that one big play to say, yeah, we might have been question marks coming into the year. Who's going to be, the number one, or what is this wide receiving unit as a whole? A big catch or a nice play, or just you absolutely burned your defender and get wide open. That would be another sort of, I guess, sidebar what I want to see in this game out of Syracuse as well.
Totally.
Kind of coincides
Absolutely.
with the 300 passing yards. And I will say this: 300 yards is a big ask from a guy who's career high he almost hit at Syracuse last game at 236. So it's getting there, and we're asking a lot from him. But I think it's because this is the game where it can happen. We're seeing some signs that say he might be able to pull this off now, and he might be at that point. And this is the come on, prove it, show us what you can do kind of game that we are really, really going to be eyes open for, even though it might not be against the best defense or a top opponent by any means. It is still going to say a decent amount in my eyes if he can come out and just sling the ball.
I also, like you kind of hinted at, like I'd like to see one receiver kind of rise up among the rest and just like, okay, this is the guy, and have one target that we all know as fans and media that we can all rely on when the ball's going their way. Because right now, I feel like whoever the ball's going to, I'm like, Like every time
Yeah.
he drops back to pass and he's about to unleash a throw, I'm like, oh no. I'd like to know that wherever, if the ball's going to Alford or Courtney Jackson or whoever it is, at least one guy I want to be like, okay, like this is probably going to be a big play.
Give me
That's
some
kind of a
Amba
huge
Adetawa
ask too.
confidence.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably a huge ask too for this receiver room, just because
Yeah.
they got thrown into the spotlight last year after Taj left, and this year they're probably still not where they're supposed to be, and maybe the talent in the room's just not really there. But uh, anyway, that's what I'd like to see. Okay, moving on to our final one before we get to some Twitter questions. Defense combine for 4 sacks or turnovers. So 4 sacks slash turnovers. Um, I honestly think I want this to be 5.
Yeah. Can we
So I'm
change
going to
that
make it
quick?
5. Um,
I thought
but
that's what we said before we jumped on. I think 5 is that
okay,
number for me.
5. Bang! Look at that.
Bang.
5 sacks or turnovers. I mean, you're playing a UConn offense that like isn't good. They won 1 game last year. The entire team was like peace, or something like that. And this season they're 1-1. They lost to Utah State and they beat Central Connecticut State. Now they have Syracuse. Wow, there's a gauntlet schedule for Connecticut.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, have you seen this? They host Syracuse, then they go to number 4 Michigan. They go to the Big House. What? And then they go down to NC State to play the Wolfpack. What the heck? It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. They got BC later on. They got Army and Liberty. Dude, what? Why are they playing such a tough schedule? That's crazy.
It really is nuts. Like I don't think I ever looked at that in that much depth, but it is crazy to actually see that. But to look at this and get back to the 5 sacks or turnovers, I guess I see this as almost a momentum thing in my eyes. I look at last year's numbers and was 3 fumble recoveries and 4 interceptions on the entire season. And I just sort of look at this week as against Louisville, you come out and you do your thing, right? 3 turnovers on 3 consecutive drives. And then you get 3 sacks as well in that Louisville game. I think the fact that you're almost halfway to last year's turnover margin or turnover numbers in terms of forced turnovers in game 1, I would love to see that momentum carry over into this week against UConn, and you put them in some tough spots, and you make them, make some tough throws, and you're able to punch a ball out or something like that, or just be a presence in the backfield. I think this is huge if you can take, now you've got back-to-back weeks. You've got a really, really strong defensive performance against Louisville, where a lot of really solid plays were made and big moments. And as we said sort of yesterday and in our breakdown, you really only got burnt once, and you made up for it with a chase down tackle by Garrett Williams and then a 4-down stop on the goal line. You did your thing, and I would love to see them do that again against UConn. So now when you go into this, those coin flip games where you play Purdue, you play Virginia in games that are winnable but by no means gimmies, you've got that defensive momentum of, hey, we've got back-to-back weeks where we forced multiple turnovers and we're in the opponent's backfield and forced them to make some tough decisions. That defense would really be riding a high going into week 3. And that's sort of where I see on this combined for 5 sacks or turnovers threshold.
Yeah, they would be riding that high, and they're going to need it when they have to play
Yeah.
Purdue and Virginia back in the Dome. And then they have that gauntlet part of the schedule, NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Pitt. Oh my gosh, that is going to be bonkers, just nuts. Speaking of schedules, I feel like we should be getting the basketball schedule sometime around now-ish. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get that soon. Whenever we do, we'll talk about it. But anyway, all right. Well, that's it for what we want to see. Let's talk some Twitter questions. First one that we have was after the Louisville game from Ezekiel. Ezekiel said, have to entertain the possibility that the game spoke more about how bad Louisville is versus Syracuse being really good. Ultimately, it's probably both. Louisville is worse than expected, and Syracuse is better. How much better We still don't know. And then he said, without drops and penalties, Syracuse doubles that score, 62-7 your final. So maybe Syracuse is that good. I think that he's right in that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Louisville came into the year, everybody was so amped about Malik Cunningham, and I don't think anybody realized that they have no receivers. And Marshawn Ford is literally like their only guy. Tyon Evans is not bad at all. He's a good player as at their running back position, but
Yeah.
their defense wasn't great, and their receivers are non-existent. I honestly would almost take. I think I would take Syracuse's receiver room over theirs.
All right. Wow. I just, I think he did hit the nail on the head, and it's unfortunately that cop out answer of it. It does show both things here that Syracuse, we said was, I think it was, a better team with the harder schedule was that sort of consistent narrative. And maybe the opposite was true for Louisville in terms of, yes, you've got all this hype in Malik Cunningham coming back, and I hyped it up all of last week. This offensive line brings back so much experience, and you in doing that, and as you said, Tyon Evans as well is very, very solid as a back. What you look at and you fail to look at sometimes is the receiving options, and maybe that's a nod to Syracuse's secondary and the defensive performance as well. So that's where this sort of, both parties are at hand comes into this answer. That receiving group for Louisville didn't show me anything in really anything crazy. They did sort of similarly to what Syracuse did, and that the receivers did a couple of things and were open occasionally, and they did their part, but they didn't show me anything that said this receiving group is outstanding or solid by any means.
The other thing is Syracuse got 4 votes in the coaches poll.
Yeah.
Which means to me that football minds greater than mine think Syracuse is decent, which is crazy.
100%.
Which is really awesome. So I'm going to say that it's more about Syracuse being good than Louisville being bad, because Louisville's
I think I
a team
lean
that went
that
to a
way.
bowl game. They still went to a bowl game last year. It's not like they're gonna. I don't. Maybe they'll have a terrible season, but like I don't know that this is the same team Syracuse saw in 2018 when they went 2-10. And then they brought in Satterfield.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Louisville isn't great, but I don't think they're awful. That's my take. Some people are saying they're the worst in the ACC. I don't really buy that. But anyway.
Yeah, I look at them too, and that defense had a ton of question marks just because of the fact that, like, you look at that defense and it is just transfer. There are so many keys on that defense that are just they're players that are going to be big time role players for them and big time players for them in terms of importance to that team, but they're not quite a team, I would say. You look at that Syracuse defense and the number of returners and that consistency that they have in the defensive, the backs, the linebackers, even the D line in terms of experience and having snaps under their belt together as a group. That goes such a long way. I think Louisville can be better 100% than what we saw them do this weekend against Syracuse. But I think I side with you in that I'm going to give the nod to Syracuse here because they played a complete game. Both sides of the ball, they played very, very solid. And I will give them the nod here and say, I'm going to say 65-35. Syracuse good, 65. Louisville not as good as we thought, 35.
Cool. Okay, let's go on to the second question we got from Lucas Satchel on Twitter. He says, rank the ACC after the first week. How about we rank Syracuse within the ACC? Like, where would you put Syracuse right now? I don't know that I have the knowledge to rank every single team. I don't watch every single game, but I could tell you where I think Syracuse probably is. Last year, we saw them towards the bottom. The year before, they were dead last, 1-10. Year before that, they started out with high hopes, had a good week 1, and then were awful. And of course, then 2018. So we've seen them kind of fluctuate. But right now, I think I'd put them behind Clemson, Miami, Pitt, NC State, even though NC State had a terrible game. I don't know. Let me think a little bit more. What do you got?
I'm with you here. So I see Clemson, Pitt, Miami. Then I think I'm going to put. Oh, do I want to put Florida State ahead of Syracuse right now?
I don't know. That's the one that I'm a little bit. I don't know. Like Florida State probably kind of has to go there, right? I think Syracuse is going to sit sixth on mine.
I think I see Syracuse as 7. I am going to say I like them above North Carolina right now, which I know, some people do, some people don't at this point. I think I'm going to put
I'll put Wake above them too.
Wake above them, yep. Or is that putting them at 8? No, I think that puts them at 7 in my mind. So it would be like Clemson, Pitt, Miami, Florida State, NC State, Wake Forest, and then I see Syracuse.
I think I got them at 7
them
too.
Sort of on that same line right now as North Carolina and Virginia, and I'm going to give them the nod over those two teams because I think, I mean, North Carolina App State game was electric for what it's worth.
But
I'm going to give Syracuse the nod defensively. And then I am also going to say that Virginia beat Richmond at this point, which doesn't say anything to me. So I'll give Syracuse the nod.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So I think Syracuse is right in that sort of trio with them. But I'm going to give them.
But they're also among teams like Florida State and Syracuse right now probably have the most to prove.
Yeah.
Having won games they weren't supposed to win.
Exactly. Florida State and Syracuse are definitely like, yes, right now you've got them at, I don't know, say 4-7 or 5-7 in terms of your ACC rankings or your power rankings in the ACC right now. They're both one loss away from being 10-11. And going back to like Syracuse was picked by many to be in the dead last in the Atlantic conversation 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So they proved themselves in week 1, but there's still that, as you were saying, they still have a ton to prove. And they're in that sort of bubble right now that can pop. And you're going to fall pretty hard if that bubble pops.
Totally. All right. Well, that's all we got for you today. I'm Matt Bonaparte. That's Owen Valentine. Before we leave you, let's just say thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. Local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from our guy, Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Owen and I back tomorrow. Your Friday episode will be there. We'll be previewing the UConn game even more, telling you who to look out for on their side, and we'll give you a prediction. We apologize for not doing so last week. We will every single week from here on out.
What a miss.
Miss from us.